If you run an info, coaching, or a service business that's doing around $100,000 a month or more, and every month still just kind of feels like you're white knuckle scrambling to hit your numbers, you're juggling setters, testing new closers, just kind of hoping the calendar doesn't fall apart, well then this video is for you. Because I'm going to walk you through the systems that we use to build and operate sales team that actually scale to generate 7 and 8 figures in revenue without you living on sales calls or crossing your fingers at the end of every month hoping to hit your targets. So we're going to cover 3 parts. First of all, a simple systems thinking mental model for your customer acquisition, and then how to design your setting and closing systems properly. And finally, how to build what I call a Navy SEALs level of trust inside of the team so the whole thing runs smooth like a German engine. And if you've never seen me before, my name is Bendik and I run a company called Closing Consulting. Now we help info, coaching, and service businesses scale from 6 to multi-7 figures in revenue by running and scaling their sales ops. Our teams have closed well into the 8 figures in client revenue across offers from $3,000 to over $20,000. And on this channel, I share what's working, what isn't, and also what are we actively doing inside of the sales ops that we manage. And my goal with these videos is very simple. I just want to document the lessons that we learn to attract top tier talent to join our team, and also to attract the right partners by first demonstrating our competence. So let's dive in. Now, first of all, you need a systems thinking mental model, because every system is made up of 3 parts. You have input, which is what goes into the system; process, what happens to that input; and then output, what comes out. Now, let me give you a simple example outside of sales. In the Netflix show Chef's Table, there's an episode on Thomas Keller, and he has like 7 Michelin stars. And all of these chefs obsess over one simple thing, which is ingredients. They're world class at cooking, but they know that if the ingredients are garbage, the plate will never be great. In other words, your process can be amazing, but if the input sucks, the output is just limited. Now, your acquisition is the same. It's not just one funnel. It's a system made up of 3 subsystems. Number 1, you have the marketing system. The input here is attention and ad spend. The process is content, funnels, webinars, VSLs, and the output is leads and calls booked. The second one is the setting system. The input is leads and booked calls. The process is the setters who are calling, texting, qualifying, and confirming appointments. And then you have the output, qualified shows on the closer's calendar. And lastly, you have the closing system. The input is the qualified shows, the process is the actual sales conversation, and of course the follow-up. And then you have the output, which is closed deals, cash collected, and good fit customers. And visually, it's all really integrated into one machine. Marketing output becomes setting input, becomes closing input, creates the revenue. Now, here's why this actually matters. If you want to put $1 into the system and reliably pull $10 out, each subsystem has to work. And so the whole point of tracking KPIs is not to make pretty dashboards and look all fancy. It's to see which subsystem is broken. Where is the choke point in this process? And so if ROAS sucks, but the sales metrics are amazing, well then you have a marketing problem. If show rates are trash, but your traffic is fine, you have a setting problem. And if everyone shows and nobody buys, well then you have a closing problem. And so the job of the operator of this entire system is to look at the KPIs, find the failing subsystem, and then drill down there instead of just randomly working harder to improve the results. Now, I'm going to do a separate deep dive on all the KPIs and dashboards that we use. So I'm not going to go deeper into numbers here. But for now, just lock in this frame, right? It's input, process, output, all across the marketing, setting, and closing. That's the entire acquisition system. So because we work with sales, let's dive a little bit more into the second part of the process here, which is the setting system. So most people think that the setter's job is just to book calls, but that's all wrong. The setter's real job is generating qualified prospects who show up in the right headspace. And here's how we usually think about the flow. So the inputs into the setting process usually look like event attendees, lead magnet opt-ins, application submissions, and of course, people who directly booked calls on the closer's calendar. Now the setter's process is to take those and do 5 things. So number 1, define the problem and establish urgency. What exactly are you trying to solve? And why does this actually matter now, not just someday? Because if there's no real problem and no urgency, the rest is just a waste of time. And then you got to ensure they have enough information. Let's say you sell a real estate investing offer. They need a basic understanding of how real estate investing works, who the coach is, how their strategy and methodology works, and what it roughly takes to succeed. And this is a great place for the setter to share videos and resources to really help fill in the gaps of knowledge with the prospect before coming to the closing call. So think of it as the homework for them to do. So they're able to make an educated decision on the call. And this stops the closing call from being an information giving call and it becomes a decision making conversation. Then you got to build trust with the brand and the coach, because the prospect should end that first interaction thinking, well, these guys seems to be experts at solving this problem. And also, they understand where I'm at and they've helped people in my shoes plenty of times. And this is where you share relevant case studies and proof, like, you have success interviews, ideally with someone as close to that prospect in terms of the avatar as possible. You share testimonials, reviews, whatever you have that really just fundamentally makes them believe that you're the right decision. And then you got to pre-frame a life-changing decision, because the setter's job is to warm them up to the idea that the upcoming call is not just a quick chat. It's about making a real decision to make progress on their goals. And so, you might have had a conversation summing it up like, you've been thinking about this for 2 years. If we find that we're the right fit, are you actually ready to change your situation? And we want to get the prospect to actually make a bit of a tie down, a bit of a commitment to the fact that, yes, I am in fact ready. Because if they do that, they're starting to open up to the idea of change. And that's ultimately what's going to happen on the closing call. And lastly, what the setter wants to do is to confirm the appointment and do a proper handoff. And so you got to reconfirm close to the time of the appointment, make sure they got all the, links to the call and the time is still working for them. And then you want to leave clean, concise notes in the CRM so the closer knows what they're walking into. And so the output of the setting system, again, is not calls on the calendar. It's a high show rate with prospects who have context and enough insights that the closer can actually do their job of selling the product or the service. And that's what we measure. Show rate, qualified offers made, and a pipeline of warm prospects created, not just sheer volume of calls booked. Now, the closing system. And the input here is qualified shows and solid notes from the setter. The closer's job is not to hard close people into yes. Is to lead the prospect through a high-stakes decision-making process. And we think about it in 5 steps. 1, expand the gap they want to cross. Where are they now? This is point A. Where do they want to be? That's point B. And why does that matter in concrete terms? Then you want to clarify the consequences of failure versus success. What happens if nothing changes in 12 months? And what happens if you actually hit this goal? Why is that important? Now, the goal here is obviously not to manipulate. The goal is to get them to see the problem they said they want solved. We need them to feel the emotions that will drive them to actually make a change to their situation. And you then can start showing how your offer is going to bridge that gap. Because once they're clear on A, where they are, and B, where they want to be, you can then walk them through how your process works, where people get stuck, and how you help them through those spots. Lastly, the closer needs to help them overcome fear and actually decide. Because most people on these calls are not confused, they're scared. And they've been thinking about this for years, but they're doing nothing. And there's a lot of emotion tied up in finally taking that first step. And so your job is to give them enough clarity, certainty, and the right perspective so that they can make a decision today, yes or no, without feeling pressured or rushed. And most of the high ticket stuff that we sell is not bought with a quick decision, right? It's a long process of deciding to buy or not to buy, which is why you need to see this whole acquisition process as one coherent system. The marketing attracts and finds the right people, the setter filters out the fluff and warms up the qualified prospects, and then the closer just has to then help them get off their ass and make a decision. But that only happens consistently, and that's the key word, consistently, if the rest of the system is actually dialed in. And the closer has to protect delivery and reputation. And saying no to bad fit clients is part of the closing system. Because wrong customers with wrong expectations, that just ruins your customer success metrics and it ruins your brand. And you want closed deals that become case studies, not landmines for future deals. And notice something here. Closed deals are one output. But lost deals, that's another output. Because even if they don't buy, every serious prospect should leave thinking, wow, that was a good conversation. They were straight with me, they didn't feel pushy, and they genuinely wanted to see me win. I might not be the right person for them, or this might not be the right thing for me, but I'm happy to recommend them to XYZ friend that I know this will be a fit for. And over time, this is gonna show up in building the brand, creating referrals, and honestly, just getting easier closes, especially not losing deals because you've had a sales team that burns through the reputation. Now, none of this matters if the team doesn't trust each other enough to operate as one. And there is this quote I like from Alex Hormozi. You don't become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. And trust inside a sales team works the exact same way. You don't build trust by saying we're a family or we're a great team. You build trust by stacking undeniable proof every day that everyone is doing their job. And concretely, in a setter closer team, what that looks like is that the setter always confirms appointments, the setter writes clear, useful notes, there's no fluff, everyone fills out their KPIs, they do their end of day reports on time, and the closer runs proper, respectful calls and actually updates the CRM. And both sides need to give and receive feedback like adults. And they need to talk during the day, not just live in separate silos, which so often happens. Now, let me give you a quick parallel universe example here. So in universe 1, there's no trust because the setter doesn't confirm calls, the notes are sloppy or missing, KPIs and EODs are really never filled in. And so the closer shows up to the calls thinking, is this person even going to show up? What am I walking into? Like, why do I even bother? And so they're off their game before they even start the sales meeting. And look at the opposite. In this universe, there's a high trust because every call is confirmed, notes are clear, to the point, and just always there. KPIs and EODs are updated daily. And in the morning, the setter messages, here are your calls for today. All are confirmed. Notes are in the CRM. Let me know if you need anything. Go get them. How does that closer show up? Well, it's going to be confident, focused, and motivated to give 100% because someone else clearly cares about them doing their job right. And it also goes the other way around too. When the setter sees that the closer is giving you real feedback, respecting the leads, and updating their numbers, they're much more willing to push hard on their side because they can confidently hand off all the work that they have done to their team member, trusting that they're going to take good care of the work and they haven't really wasted their efforts warming up the leads. They know they're handing the leads off to someone who cares and they're going to make their commission. And remember this, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to your level of preparation and systems. And your sales team has to operate like one engine, where everyone understands the full system, everyone owns their piece of the process, and everyone behaves in a way that makes the rest of the team's job easier, not harder. And do that, and then scaling to 7 and 8 figures becomes a question of volume and offer, not raw muscle power. So to give you a quick recap, you got to look at your acquisition as 3 connected systems: marketing, setting, and closing. You then got to design your setting and closing so that the real outputs are qualified shows, offers made, cash, and reputation, not just vanity numbers. And then build trust by creating a culture where everyone proves daily that they can be counted on. And that's how you create a sales operation that can actually scale consistently. And again, as an operator, you just got to look at which one of these systems is currently bottlenecking the entire process, and that's where you focus your attention. Now, if you run an info, coaching, or service business doing at least $100,000 a month or more, and if you want a team like this built and run for you so you can step out of sales without revenue dropping, there's a link below where you can learn more about how we actually work with our partners. And if you're not there yet, maybe your revenue is a little bit lower or you just want to build this in-house, then subscribe to the channel because I'm going to keep sharing exactly what works for us in building and scaling multiple $1 million sales teams at the same time. And I'll do my best to give away everything that we learn. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.